Yeah, there we go. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for waiting. Hi. I would like to begin my presentation, which I called the intertwining of web and self.
Okay, we have a little technical issue because it's showing.
Oh, come on. How so?
Try again.
Just try it again. Yeah.
Try to present it again.
Is it showing just the PowerPoint, like the program?
Yeah.
In that case, you need to like play the presentation and then share the screen, because it basically opens as a different entity from the
Oh yeah, I understand now.
It counts as a different screen for some reason.
Thank you so much.
No worries. I've had this issue way too many times.
So, sharing and change it. Okay. There we go.
Yes.
Now we're already off to a great start. So, so to backtrack a little bit, I called my presentation Intertwining of the Web and Self, Writing as a Tool of Embodiment Online. So I'm very happy that I can at least connect a little bit into this notion of using writing as a technology. First of all, I kind of wanted to pose an idea. I think all of us experienced this at some point, that we're sitting next to our device that we use to access the internet, and we've been sitting there for a decent part of the day, and then realize we actually feel really exhausted. We might have been chatting with our friends or family, posting content on social media, navigating interface on some website, or just honestly writing and checking emails and doing the laborious work. In terms of physical labor, there wasn't anything much of note. But why do we feel exhausted? In fact, we were traversing a space in a way, even though a metaphorical one. It's kind of strange parallel universe that might be tangible in terms of servers, screens, and transatlantic cables, but most of us think about it as this nebulous and intangible thing. It's kind of like internet is this intrinsically mental exercise of our imagination that allows us to truly connect to it and move in its space. And it can be exhausting and disorienting experience at times. You have this metaphorical place where you are stripped from the immediacy in a way and tangibility most of the time. And you navigate it through icons, indexes, and symbols. And now a task of building some sort of identity lies ahead of you. What's more, you cannot be truly separated from the space these days. The online permeates our offline daily, whether it's through notifications that pops up on our phones, or the necessity to fill out an application on somebody's website. Scheduled Zoom meetings, I think, would serve as a decent example, or even just the ideas about what to post next on your social media if you are, for example, content creator. We essentially live with a separate consciousness existing in cyberspace that is in our head at all times, regardless of whether we are actually on the devices that access the internet. Kind of the offline nowadays exists only as a parallel to online. And the necessity to be online is and will continue to be pushed on us. And the perks and ramifications of this are still in the process of being explored. And now comes the question I ask for this presentation. How do you even begin to construct an identity in such a place that is not actually a place? And what does writing have to do with it? So I will give this sort of like short food for thought, like a collection of the things that I have observed about this while looking at my own digital communication and how I like present myself on the internet and things like that. Now, digital space is a complex and difficult to tackle topic, so I know I became quite ambitious with this because there's this sheer amount of data to explore and so many types of expression. Therefore, the ways of carving out identity online can be many. The one that has been of a particular interest to me is digital communication, both direct and indirect, especially how we approach identity through chat and social media posts. For a while, I've been, like I said, casually observing how much of ourselves we manage to project into a humble text box. Growing amount of daily communication is becoming written rather than spoken. First, it started with like text messages, or if we are being exact, it might have started long with letters. But in terms of the digital and the technical, it started with text messages and moved on all the way to social media and message boards and similar things. And they are making it very easy to reach out to people and stay in touch with each other. But even though technology might have developed to a point that you can technically video call or send a voice message to anyone, the written messages kind of stubbornly persist. If I had to inform like a friend that I want to meet up with them, I certainly wouldn't call them. I would text them. I don't know if it's like bias of my age necessarily, but I think most people these days, if they know that the other person has access to a phone, they would probably also text. And after like a while, I started to think about why I take this as something that is like obvious, that I would prefer a text over a phone call, and vice versa, that my friend would probably also prefer the same thing. And I mean, texting on your app of choice, or just like even sending a classical SMS, is a good blend of features. They are in a way semi-immediate, because the pauses between the responses can typically like acceptably stretch longer than in face-to-face or even camera-to-camera communication. They are also more reliable in terms of availability and coordination of the communication. Like I have a bigger chance of having stable enough connection and the technology available right in my pocket with my phone to send a message to someone rather than a video call. Not to even mention that the person on the other side might not have the time for a video call, but they have the time to just like simply quickly check their phone and read the message. And also because the conversation is unveiling in front of you in writing, it is way easier to keep track of it and even stretch the conversation over like longer periods of time when a person gets back to the message that got sent by somebody else over like hours ago, and you can smoothly like jump back into the conversation. And of course, when chatting, you can also use features that aren't available to you in face-to-face communication or even over video, like sending pictures, videos by themselves, and links to other information in the vast digital space. Now, I just sung praises over how I love texting. All of that sounds great. But it can also cause a lot of problems and a lot of miscommunication. Humans are only getting used to being online in the last couple of decades, after all. And this strange semi-immediacy in a written medium is still quite novel. We are more attuned to hold conversations in person because there is way more signals and context for us to decode. We don't just communicate with our words, we communicate through our voice, through our bodies. These paralinguistic features are fundamentally ingrained in our conversations and increase the clarity of transmitted message. But when communicating through text box, There is no head for you to nod, no voice for you to raise, no mouth for you to smile with. Or is there? Well, with my last sentence, you might have already been saying, like, wait, I've yelled at somebody through chat before. I just have to use caps lock. I've smiled at people and emphasized my point or said sent somebody sarcastic, sure. And that is precisely what I want to talk about in this presentation. Thanks to the rising need for text-based communication, this written word is shifting into this hybrid layered kind of medium that's starting to resemble spontaneous spoken speech, or spoken language, rather than what we consider the typical written language. It is expanding to accommodate complex and varied pragmatic needs, such as conveyance of emotions, or tone, strength and color of voice, or even bodily reactions like smiles, shrugs, and other gestures. I mean, like even our chat apps are displaying our messages as speech bubbles. So the idea of it being a conversation in the real sense of the word is very out there. Now, I've put in the quote from the book that has done a lot of research on this, and I think it sums this up quite nicely. New trends have emerged in terms of how people write in digital spaces, leading of the formation of a hybrid style that combines both oral and written features together with multiple codes and scripts, as well as paralinguistic features. I will, of course, exemplify. Now, people are layering the text with emotions through emoticons, emoji, unconventional typography, and onomatopoeic sounds. People respell words to resemble prosody, they drop pronouns and reduplicate letters, and they yell at each other through caps lock. They are using the tools at their disposal to personalize writing in a way that more closely reflects how they talk in real life. They are embodying themselves in a virtual space of the internet that is accessed through screen and materialized at the receiver's head. This digital writing suddenly becomes another tool of self-expression that highlights what are the necessary aspects of a conversation. Using indicators of emotions and tone helps to increase the clarity of the written message and also makes the conversation feel more personal. Like I am really talking with my friend on the other side because they reply in the same manner they would probably do when we would have the conversation in person. The author of the message wants you to read it in a particular manner, foregoing the convention of spelling, punctuation, or even capitalization to closely imitate their own prosody. So there is overall greater informality, flexibility, and creativity in writing. I've exemplified this by just like a taste of the features identified, and like each of them honestly deserve their own like focus and articles. Honestly, I also fished them out from like different articles that talk about this topic. So this is just like a selection of the things I find fun. For example, the skipping of punctuation, which is very often can be found on social media posts. This was like very typical of Twitter, when it was still Twitter, that people would just write with any like complete disregard of punctuation or anything and just do a very like full of consciousness string. Then, of course, we have the well-known and beloved emoticons, cow emoji, and emoji in their various shapes and forms. The affective stances, when you try to resemble your prosody by reduplicating the letters. The emphasis and the various ways it can be done. The yelling in caps lock, and of course, just one of the many ways you can do sarcasm online. Now, the aspect of embodiment stretches further than just the reflection of our speech, because you might have noticed that in the table I provided, one of the things was kind of not like the other. If modifying typography brings forward your voice, what do emoji do? A lot of researchers are kind of quick to label them as language, but according to researchers McCulloch and Gone, they behave more like gestures. And I am honestly inclined to agree after considering this. Emojis certainly map better onto gestures than any sort of language system. And I wanted to, after a while, after I was thinking about this, I started reading up on gestures more, and then I created this table. I hope it's really nice. McNeil, also McNeil exemplifies 5 types of gestures that have gained a particular prominence, and I view they map quite nicely onto the emojis. We have emblems, which are cultural specific named symbols, like thumbs up or winking and similar things. We have iconics that are connected to a concrete item in a given utterance. So, for example, like the box was this big. And then we have metaphorics, which are very similar to iconics, but they relate to abstract meaning. Of course, deictics, which are grounded in a given utterance because they shift meaning depending on what the situation is. And then beats, which are just repeated for emphasis, like I've been doing multiple times during this presentation by just waving my hands around. And I try to map these onto emojis, which I think they do quite nicely. There's also the category of affect displays that either expresses emotional attitudes towards propositional states of affairs or signals modality, which connects to emojis' common role as back channeling tool when you are reacting to message. This feature has grown especially common with the added option of reactions. Some chat and text messaging apps have, like I think Messenger added them in like 2017, and like most of the major messaging apps have added them short after, kind of like copying this idea. That you can basically click on a message and then add the reaction directly to it, which honestly is a feature I quite like, and I think it makes the conversation flow more nicely. But after all of this talk of how we use writing online resembles how we speak, I don't think that we should minimize it to just that. I don't view digital writing as mere oralization of writing with some added paralinguistics. I think there are aspects that are unique to digital that have only begun to emerge. It's a new medium that offers new possibilities, and people love to play around with those. Our texts have become enriched by symbols from different alphabets, emojis, stickers, pictures, and GIFs, making them more dynamic, multimodal, and multimedia. So emojis that, as I just exemplified, don't only have to serve as gestures, like standing as a representation of something we do in in-person conversation, but it can also be determiners, which means that you can add an emoji at the end of your digital utterance, and it recontextualizes the entire message. with just that one emoji. Or even do rebuses with like playful substitutions of words with emojis. If you ever like sent a pun over chat that did something with emoji, that emoji replaced word. Or one of the authors I'm also going to quote later in her book, she and in her article remembers how on Twitter there used to be, I think it still is, a game where you try to tell a story, like a plot of a book using only emojis, and people then try to guess what kind of book it is. So there is like an invitation to play around with the medium. And also the reaction features that I introduced with like, yeah, this is how way to back channel. This is way how for me to tell you how I feel about a given thing. Well, those are also quite often used as polls. For example, when you have a group chat and you want to meet up, there is technically a feature for polls, like a more official one. I also don't know how old those have been, but it is way quicker and easier if a person just shoots two messages with like, I can meet up Tuesday or Wednesday. Thumbs up, reaction on those who can do on Tuesday and those who can do Wednesday. And you basically have a very simple polling system. I think Discord even plays around with this way more because it has like even a wider selection of emojis. And then, of course, there's ASCII art, which has a long form tradition from typewriters and similar devices now translated to screens when you kind of form the characters into different pictures. It is basically like the predecessor or like the proto idea of the Calmoji that I showed before. So trying to claim that our digital communication has simply like moved closer towards the spoken one, one would be disregarding many of its unique qualities. And I think there's a certain phenomenon that proves this more than others. While its proto-origins are rooted somewhere in the days before the internet, the true virality that would later project onto their name only came with technological means and quick redistribution and remixing options. For the people in the room who know me, they of course know that I'm talking about memes. Now, whether you like memes or not, or whether you get them, in a sense, you have to admit they are kind of weird. Like, they appear to be some of like logical extensions of jokes, with just like playing around with the medium. So like, oh yeah, they have traditions and like spoken jokes and doodles and graffiti and whatnot. Just kind of like they get way more popular when everybody's options on making these equalized by having access to the same tools. And yet, there's something about memes that just stops me from calling them online version of jokes. They seem to be too unified for that, even too linguistic. Particular meme templates are often empty signs that are imbued with meaning through creative process, and if done wrong, they can become ungrammatical. There is a way how you can like make meme not make sense. It's difficult because sometimes they are like under so many layers of irony that it's kind of like purpose for it not to make sense. But it is notable when you mess up a meme in a way that you would add a wrong sentence into a conversation. So they've become this kind of like genre of science that invites playfulness and creativity. I personally find them fascinating because there seems to be like endless debate on how to even begin to define them in both academic and public online discourse. I initially wanted to include some sort of like definition of like what I like best, what I think best fits. And then I realized my opinion on that keeps changing every time I read a new article or like find a new angle on it. That I just kind of gave up on giving one rigid thing. Is something that I want to explore in the future more into depth, simply because I think it's really not only like funny but also very interesting. Some articles that I've read called memes speech acts, some call them habits, some call them language. And there are multiple, I think, viewing angles on how to approach them. But I haven't truly yet formed a solid opinion on that. But they certainly nicely tie into the embodiment narrative that I've been building up. Because they are often used as reactions or even like phatic form of communication, where one sends a meme to another to kind of like retain the conversational channel. I often send memes to my friends or like send memes to the group chat where everybody can view it to kind of like connect in a way that like, oh, I thought of you. I thought you might find this funny. Also, I want to make you laugh. So they are very, very useful in that regard. But also more importantly, especially if you are the type of person who really not only like resends memes, but actually makes them, they often position the creator or the sender, even if you are just reposting them, onto the role of something in the meme. So just as I embodied my mood and feelings through the person on the meme in the previous slide, in attempt to humor you, people online also do that quite often. The typical way to do this is through so-called exploitables, which is a type of meme template in which a single image is manipulated through various means to achieve the intended humorous effect, which can include adding captions, layering it with more images, changing the positions of the subjects, and so on, with the intention to change the original meaning by adding new context and applying it to a new situation, which makes them incredibly flexible in application. Literally, there is a meme to anything, anywhere, at any time, and if it's not, you can make one. So they are very useful in a way that they neatly compress cultural and kind of like circumstantial context into one or two pictures without us, the sender, having to explain it. You just kind of like get a neat compressed package of meaning that the other side, if they are familiar with this type of meme and know, will instantly get. And it's through just like one image. And that is exactly what makes them profoundly important to digital culture. Memes seem to be this proverbial glue that brings us together and allows us to build online communities, culture, and mythology. Because memes are inherently participatory, observers want to be part of that in-group that gets the memes. Maybe it's just me, but usually when I find a new meme online or like a meme that I don't understand, I literally just Google it. So because I want to get it, because I want to understand what the person, the original author, or even the person who reposted it meant. And that's how I got like into this whole mess of online and digital culture. I have like a library of meme templates in my head that's just there at all times. But I view this kind of nice because memes are a way of like us claiming small parts of the internet for ourselves. Besides all the corporations and all the websites that now want your data or want you to use their website, you can still send memes. And of course, memes can also be used by corporations, but there's this kind of like coldness to it. It's the personal level of it is very nice. So in a way, we are kind of like building this history together with it. This kind of common folklore. I quite like Maas and Dingsan in their online essay. They just coined the term lore for the collective memory and mythology. Lore is, according to them, is essentially a collection of various artifacts that combine memes, jargon, behavior, knowledge, aesthetics, personas, and narratives, but also motifs, words, and images. It's this kind of like communal semiosphere of meanings and participation in it that is a significant part of one's belonging into an online community. So in a way, you can end up with like meme made and posted inside of a closed group can be utterly baffling to a person from like without the context. But it can learn the context, and therefore, like there's this extension, this invitation of maybe possibly being part of this community if you learn their language. What I'm trying to say is one does not simply explain memes. There is a lot of layers. There is a lot of things, and while it might be on the surface like haha funny images, I think I kind of like just try to give you this idea of them being actually way more culturally interconnected and vitally important for our digital lives as individuals. This is I would kind of like to start wrapping this up on a quote from a book that actually brought about this curiosity about internet language and internet behavior. It's more like a popular science book by Gretchen McCulloch that I later discovered made that article about memes as about emojis as gestures. Called Because Internet. And she, of course, has an entire section about memes, where she says, like all cultures, internet culture is referential, baffling to outsiders, relying more on shared history than explicit instruction. Like all cultures, it's not truly a single culture. It has some parts that are widely shared and others that occupy tiny niches. So I personally might not have quite a clear idea of how exactly to categorize memes or how exactly talk about them, but I view them as this very important part of digital writing that should not be left out of the conversation. To conclude, I just wanted to give you a short overview and food for thought about all the complex ways we use language and writing on the internet. How we use various aspects like emojis, unusual typography, and memes, and various other tools to our advantage to help us embody ourselves in the digital space, both in efforts to construct identity and to decrease the ambiguity of the conversation. Furthermore, I wanted to point out how certain features like memes help us build and maintain online communities, creating our shared, common, and beloved digital folklore. Here are my sources. Here are more of my sources, and by this, I would like to thank all of you for your attention.
Thank you, Anežka. That was amazing. And Nick already has a question. So, Nick?
Go for it.
Yeah, I apologize. Maybe you spoke on this when I had to go call an English student of mine, but have you ever looked into, the term meme Richard Dawkins coined for biology?
Oh, yeah. There is like this. The evolution of the term meme is actually very interesting because, like, for the people who might not know, it started as this idea in biology of memes being parallel to genes in a way that they are, I think, like cultural reproduction of it, and they are what we are passing on onto like other generations. And only later it has been coined by, I think his name was Michael Godwin, in this article for the Wired magazine, where he connected this idea of memes from biology to internet memes. I think it was specifically connected to terms like emerging ideology online. I think he actually, like, the connection was that he saw a lot of like right-wing specific images being reproduced, and but like it's been a while since I've read that, but like he in that sense called those things internet memes in a way they spread. And the term caught on and then was everywhere, and now meme means everything and nothing.
Yeah, I mean, we use these biological terms like it went viral, and people don't pause on that word and say, well, it's a, viral, and it's a virus. It's not a good thing.
But it means, I think it's a very nice wording, because virus is something that is like both alive and not alive, and it has agency and it doesn't have agency. So it's this kind of uncontrollable thing that impacts everything, every organism that it.
Yeah, it depends on how it's used, I think. Depends on the type of virality.
Yeah, I have this one article that when I said that one of the things I've read argued for Percy's concept of habituescence, this one was that she's arguing that memes are actually like not units, but they are systemic, and that remix translation fits as a concept better than remixing, and habituescence fits better than virality. And it was very interesting read.
Do we have other questions in the room?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. It was super cool, and I always like your presentations. It's a visual pleasure to see them. And I was thinking about that. Actually, maybe we had one of our colleagues in Pato is doing a PhD about also memes. I think so, but from the aspect of discourse analysis and like semiotics, like this more social semiotic angle. And it was funny because he gave us a lecture and we all were like, okay, so semiotics is explaining memes. So it's like the worst way how to explain a joke, to analyze it, right? And dissect it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you try to explain it, then it's not funny.
It's not funny anymore, of course, but then it's like super semiotic. So it's like very cute at the same time.
I hate to say memes are deep, but they are indeed that deep.
Yeah. So that's why like he does it from that angle, and I see like you're doing this from like this angle. Have you? For me, memes usually carry also this, maybe connecting to the previous presentation in a way, this kind of very embodied experience that we cannot explain by language, so we use memes. So have you met any research about this kind of embodied experience of memes and this kind of emotional, or sometimes it's actually very, it's like very physical, there's the memes that describe like a feeling like an ick or something that you're like, oh, it's like super physical and you have no idea how to explain it.
Yes, something just clicks in a way,
yes.
but you can't explain
but
why.
It's super embodied, so language is like before language. So
like it's to answer your first question, I have not yet encountered, I believe there might be something out there, but I have not yet found something that would probably like take this embodiment, how you describe it, into account.
Which I think it's interesting because it's always like this kind of discourse analysis of linguistic analysis, but actually we use memes to describe this kind of like corporal.
Feeling. Very much. That's why I kind of like wanted to add it to the presentation, because I haven't thought about it myself in that way until I started this concept of embodiment for this presentation, and it's really interesting. I think it might be connected to, like I said, the cultural consciousness of like that it's tied into like the folklore and wider community, and memes also like. One of the vital parts in them tends to be humor. Usually like, memes have to be funny or like ironic, and therefore like the irony is funny and not the meme itself. But when they are ironic, there's still the funny part. But like we attempt to connect to other people through I would say one of the most universal features, which is like we want to be happy and we want to like be laughing at something, and so that already makes the connection easier. But it's also like a lot of the memes just tend to describe very like common experiences. So like it's a there was also like a good point in the book that I quoted that very bad pictures, like not extremely artistic stuff, tend to become memes. There's this like kind of idea that it's usually like very bad grainy pictures or like animals and like a very varied thing, but usually it's not the good pictures that then invites to play us to play with it and embody something in it. But sometimes like a lot of reactionary memes tend to be like people in very funny situations, so like I don't know, person dropping something or having a funny expression. And I think that connects us on that human level of like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've done that, or like I felt that. In a way. So there's definitely like lengths this could be explored.
Yeah,
and
I'd be curious where
I would love to see it.
It lives, where this kind of research is living.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for the question.
Do we have questions from the Zoom? So there are some questions in the chat, and we have two from Daniela and from Matthias. So does any of you want to speak up, Matthias or Daniela? Okay, so Anežka, I will read the question for you, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Have you tried to acquire some kind of wider sample for texting behavior? While in many platforms, it may seem like that internet is just one young generation, we shouldn't forget that bigger platform is still Facebook, which now has older demographic of users, and such behavior in texting may drastically change.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
we were doing technical
issues. I'm
issues.
so sorry.
You can turn on the camera, so you can speak in the camera, so you can answer to the person.
Oh, yeah.
And the chat, I guess it's also there, so you can.
Okay.
So then.
Yeah, so the question is about Facebook and like the fact that like older demographics users are mostly on Facebook, and whether you try to acquire some kind of wider sample for texting behavior across different platforms.
I mean, not me personally. I kind of like have access to it through the various articles that usually tend to analyze wider scope. I looked at like analysis of WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter. Twitter tends to be really popular. But me personally, it's funny, but I don't have that much social media. I love to be the casual observer of it, or at this point, I guess not a casual, but academic one. But I don't have accounts on that many platforms. I only recently started using like Discord more because of organizational reasons. But I have a lot of people in my life who use different platforms, and I'm actually the kind of annoying person who quite often asks them about when they show something. Like oh, look what somebody sent me. I'm like, interesting. That's a very interesting linguistic feature. Do you use this often? I have Facebook, so what I have from Facebook is only a set of like personal observations.
All right. So next question is from Matthias. Do you know him? Yeah, he's a student in our department, and so yesterday in one of my classes we discussed Marshall McLuhan. So he is asking you. It's a kind of long comment. So, but the question is, do you think of internet as a completely new independent space with its own rules and properties, and where there is some alternative projected version of yourself? Or is it rather a mere extension of ourselves? If you are familiar with Marshall McLuhan, basically, would you consider internet to be the global village? Or if you are someone who made a lot of research on this topic, I'd like to know your opinion. That's the question.
It's a good question. I will have to like get my thoughts on it a little bit because while I view that there are like certain features that are unique to the internet landscape or like the cyberspace, we are definitely kind of like dragging our favorite things from reality onto that. I mean, also like people love this idea of like virtual extended reality. So that's basically like trying to embody the reality in the virtual in and of itself. But the internet as it stands today, it's kind of like hard to say, but I still think it's in some way like representation of the world, but also the world as it exists in our heads. Because like the entire time you are on the internet, you are still accessing it through like these pictures, but at the same time, like it exists as a concept in your head that you have to connect to properly. You are imagining your friends answering you when you are reading their messages. You are probably imagining the people when you are posting on social media and stuff. But there's still kind of like like layers in between. So I think it's hard to say, and I would definitely like love to do a deeper dive into the research about what are different opinions on this.
Okay, thank you. No questions from the room. Okay, I have one question because I would be interested in hearing your opinion on what Dr. Brizans presented on, and specifically AI. So when we consider, for example, ChatGPT or other chatbots that we use, like AI-based bots, they don't normally answer to our questions using emojis or any kind of these paralinguistic features. And do you think it might, like, can the technology benefit from using more of these interactive or iconic like features, determiners and digital gestures? Would it help to create like more meaningful meaning by AI?
I mean, AI can certainly like mimic these features, but I like saw AI answer in similar manners, especially with like reduplication of letters and like prolonging. When you tell it to do so, when you tell it to mimic a certain persona that speaks like that, especially when you have large enough data sets that in this case would probably consider a lot of like chat conversations, AI like can successfully mimic that, but doesn't necessarily do that often. And like I don't think it would necessarily help it to move closer towards any sort of like consciousness, because like by my opinion AI isn't conscious and we are still ways like away from that. But it would certainly make it appear more human-like if you wanted to like mimic the conversations better. Adding all of these features would certainly make it seem more personal and also like less formal. AI, unless you tell it to like ChatGPT, for example, like answers in very formal manner. A friend who does like an office job told me one time that he immediately recognizes which emails have been by the people sent. Which emails have been written by ChatGPT, that the person kind of just like couldn't be bothered to write an email and told ChatGPT to do it because they have like 3 or 4 paragraphs. While the emails written by real humans were incredibly like short and very to the point, or sometimes even like foregoing the crucial information that was supposed to go there. But still, it was notable which one was written by AI, because AI tends to be quite chatty again, unless you tell it so. So you can model it to make it appear more human-like. But I don't think that adding this to like the training data unless your goal is for it to be a better chameleon, would in any help like get us closer to, I don't know, AGI or something.
Do we have other questions from the Zoom?
Well, I would like to say goodbye, but with the last sentence to thank the speaker. That was a very good presentation, very useful information. I have many notes here, especially the discussion about the memes, very dangerous development there. We need to understand. But as for the last portion of the discussion, I would suggest that we think about the AI development as a very useful tool we can create and adapt to our needs. And one thing AI cannot do, as much as it is developed now, it cannot dream. We can, so let us have our big dreams and make AI those dreams come true. So that would be my message to all of us. That's how I see this AI. I'm very excited about using it, of course. I would love to learn all the details to be able to curate it and have my own digital device that can, as I said, that can make all my dreams come true. So thank you so much for being part of this fascinating discussion. I would have loved to be there now in that cozy room to continue the discussions with you, but this is Thanksgiving today here, and that's why I couldn't be in the office. I'm at home, and everybody's waiting for me to have breakfast. It's in the middle of the day to have brunch. I hope to see you sometime in person, all over, maybe here, over at the Institute, and have a great day, all of you.
Thank you so much for
Bye.
the kind comments. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, so see you next time in 2 weeks. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Even to
All the Americans out there.
Yeah.
That was the American in the room.